Hey traders, Raghi here, and in this video we're going to go over actually a question that I got this morning in the chat room, and it was this: Hey Raghi, are you trying to turn me into a Forex trader? And the answer is, well, maybe. Maybe if you want to take advantage of moves in emerging markets and moves on the euro and euro futures. I'm taking a look at EEM right now, and this is a market that I would love to see a pullback in, as there might be a little bit of erosion in the way in which the market's looking at some of the carry trades. Now you might go, Rog, what does this have to do with anything? Well, let's connect the dots. And it's not difficult once you understand that the markets are all interconnected. And once you see that, opportunities present themselves everywhere. All you have to go do is find the one that matches your risk-reward tolerance. So let's get to it. If EEM pulls back, then, we know that the Brazil story is still making its way through the market. We talked about the Brazil story being a buy once it gapped down because so much of that fear premium, if you will, was baked in. But I'm not talking about these headline conversations like Brazil. I'm talking about things like the New Zealand dollar, or even the ruble, or even the peso. These are charts that I brought up on the TradingView, and I mentioned that these are all contracts that you can trade on the future side of things. So these aren't actually Forex markets, although Forex is the largest marketplace for the currency story. So you might say, okay, Rog, what do I do with all this? Let's connect the dots and make it actionable right now. What are the things I'm watching for if the emerging markets story begins to erode just for a little bit? Let's call it a correction. When you look at EEM, I'm looking for more weakness out of the Dow. I'm looking for more weakness for a little while out of the NK. So both these markets, I would look for movement lower on. If the NK moves lower, I'm actually open and willing and able to grab the 19,455 as a buy. If the YM continues lower, no problem. I'm still waiting for us to cross back down below 21,000 because that's going to be follow through from a short position. I've got about 25, 27 points from where we are right now at 20,995. Okay, so I'm looking for a little bit of follow through there. I'm looking for maybe a correction on the NQ, but let's not hold our breath here, because this is where a lot of the Amazon story and the heavier weighted stocks within this index become part of the conversation. You got to think about the holdings in these particular indexes. So if I think about QQQs and I think about the holdings in these QQQs, and I think about how Amazon weights within this, what do I know? Amazon is the third heaviest weighted stock, 7% within the QQQs. Only lower than Microsoft at 8% and Apple at just about 12.25%. So obviously you have a day like today when Amazon's testing 1,000, hitting a higher high. That's going to help the NAS head higher. If I'm going to fade a market, think NK, think mostly YM, the Dow, and I'm thinking about the emerging markets being one of the narratives that helps the market lower, I'm not going to jump in to the strongest market in terms of the US view. I'm not going to look to fade NQ. I'm going to look to fade YM and then maybe even ES. Now, where does this leave things like the German DAX? If we pull back here, you can see aggressively, I'm willing to jump in at 30.55, but conservatively, I'd love to take advantage of the 30 handle. So while I know this is a non-farm payroll week and it's not too early to start thinking about what NFP could be presenting, I want to talk about another narrative that's going to exceed far past this Friday's non-farm payroll, and that is, what if we start to get a much stronger pullback on the emerging market story? Keep an eye on the ruble, keep an eye on the peso. Again, you can do so by going over to tradingview.com. Look at the way in which they're kind of fatigued. In fact, when the ruble gets up to these, what I think is a double, maybe triple top, you can look at puts in the ruble. All right, what else could you look at? If you look at the peso, same thing here. kind of an uneven, but I think fairly valid double top here. Can you think about playing an overbought short? I wouldn't sell this, but I would buy puts. I'd rather buy the peso down here, but short it up here. Okay, so these are things we're going to talk about. Does this mean you have to be a currency trader? Absolutely not. You can play the futures side of this conversation. In fact, that's even what I would recommend, because you can buy, guess what, options on both the ruble and the peso. So if you're going to short either one of these, grab puts. But when we get to the oversold level, I'll walk you through how to get long or price out some calls. So this is what we're looking at. Again, it's kind of an emerging markets conversation. It's about how we might see some risk aversion, how the risk aversion could be triggered by the emerging markets, and why I think that might be part of the conversation as to why the Dow would head lower. All right, so that's what I've got for you here today. I know Amazon's in the headlines. We've got a long position in the NQ that has continued to just rock for us, but I do have this short Dow, and I do think part of that emerging markets conversation is what's going to help this at least lower, not all the way down to this 20,005, but maybe down to about 20,009, 20,008. I'll take those 100, I'll take those 200 points off the table and then see what's next for the U.S. equities markets.